Welcome to Faith in Practice, presented by Higher Powered Sports, PT, the podcast where faith meets everyday life and vocational calling. Each episode, your host, Kurt Kessler, and his guest will explore how to live out your faith in your work, relationships, and daily challenges. Let's grow together and discover how to live out your faith with passion and purpose. Let's get started.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Faith in Practice. I'm going to start off, I'll call it a mini-series or an episode broken into two separate episodes. Recently, when I was working as an athletic trainer at the high school, our girls basketball coach, Tim Goss, I really respect him for what he does for our girls basketball team, and that is not just focusing on basketball, but finding ways to emphasize positive mindset and trying to make a lasting difference for them outside of just the game of basketball. Tips and tricks and mindsets that they can use to be successful in life. And so he approached me before he gave this handout to the team, because he knows that I'm very much into improving mindset and staying positive and just the type of thing that he's doing. So he came and he handed me a copy of this list, and it's a list of 20 things or 20 tips that he was going to give his team to reference. And the list is from John Gordon, and they're his ideas, but he gave them to me, or gave me this list, and I started looking through them, and I was like, man, there's so much good stuff here. There's so much good stuff that I can apply to my life. There's so much good stuff that I can take and put a little faith spin on it. So I'm going to go through, in this episode, the first 10 points on the list, and then the next episode I'll go through 11 through 20.
It's time for Word Up.
We hit the Word Up button early today because all of this is going to tie into Scripture somehow. All of it is going to be backed up by some context. I don't want to make this a 4-hour episode, so I'm going to limit some of the context that is placed here, but just kind of give you a little bit of ways how it's the background of how it's taken from the Bible here. So the first point on this list is stay positive. And the biblical truth that I'm going to tie to that is our mindset flows from where we set our hope. And that's based on Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, which says, "Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable." The context behind this is Paul is writing this letter from prison, and he's reminding believers that joy and peace begin with what we choose to dwell on. And so it's so much easier said than done. And I know that I'm not alone in saying this or thinking this or feeling this, but when we are focused on the negative, then where our thoughts are, our actions tend to follow. So I've seen this a number of times in my life. When I focus on either bad things that are happening, when I'm focusing on things that I don't like are happening, or things that, maybe I'm being a little bit selfish and I'm just kind of focusing on myself, then everything else tends to be filtered through that negative lens. So if we could find ways to stay positive, find ways to fix our mindset on where we set our hope. For us believers, that is the hope of Jesus. It's so easy to say stay positive, but to actually put it into practice is really tough. And so just being aware that where our mindset is, that's typically where our actions will follow. The second one here, take a daily thank you walk. And the biblical truth behind this is that gratitude and anxiety cannot coexist. The first thing I thought of when I read this point was episode 17 of this podcast, where I had Daniel Day on, And he talked about how in his work and his practice, the clients that he works with, he assigns them a gratitude journal. And sometimes it can be met with, a little bit of resistance, like, why am I spending time on this? Why am I writing down what I'm thankful for? But both in life and a little bit more as we try to tie it into sports medicine, that being grounded in gratitude really does change our outlook on things. Going back to the last point about staying positive, well, if we fill our minds with gratitude and what we're thankful for, it's so much harder for that negativity to creep in, and not just creep in, but like build a camp in our minds. So taking a daily thank you walk, one, there's also a lot of stuff that suggests that being in nature and being in nature undistracted. I'm guilty of this because when I go on walks, I like to listen to podcasts because I like to, be thinking and figuring out how I can get better at stuff. But even just taking a walk in nature with no distractions, whether it's up and down the road or through the city or, your favorite park, whatever it is, like getting out, moving, that helps you to, going back to the first point, stay positive. You're moving, you're using your body. And if you're focusing on, intentionally being grateful or intentionally practicing gratitude with these thank you walks, that's gonna make a world of difference in your outlook. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 18 says, "Be thankful in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you who belong to Christ Jesus." In the context here, we're going back to Paul, one of the most influential figures in the Bible. Paul is urging the church to make gratitude a lifestyle, not something we practice only when life is easy. Think about that for a second. How much easier is it to be thankful when everything's going your way? How much easier is it to be thankful when you get that promotion at work, or your spouse is super happy with you and enjoying spending time with you? How much easier is it to be grateful when your kids are listening to you and what you're saying and being obedient? But when life is not easy, when you didn't get the promotion, when you got passed over from the promotion, when your spouse is not happy with you, or you're not on the same page, or when your kids are screaming and not responding to you, when you had a loss, an unexpected loss in the family or something like that, when things are not going well, how much harder does it become to be thankful? And if we can just somehow pause in those moments, we can just pause and think about what we have to be grateful for, that's not only going to make those tough times a little bit easier, but it's going to put into practice that gratitude lifestyle and just be able to ground you in something greater than just the circumstances that are moving and changing around you. Number 3, spend less time sitting and more time moving. This kind of goes back into it ties into the last 2 points. To take a daily thank you walk, spend less time sitting, more time moving. At first, I'm going to take this in like a physical sense. The biblical truth is that we are stewards of our bodies. 1 Corinthians 6, 19 and 20. You do not belong to yourself, for God bought you with a high price. So you must honor God with your body. Again, Paul is reminding believers that our physical bodies are instruments for God's purposes, not just ours to neglect or misuse. So yeah, spend less time sitting, more time moving. There's a lot to be said for that, because the more we move, the better we feel. Even in cases, you want to tie some sports medicine stuff into this, even in cases where we are in pain, more often than not, just getting up and moving is going to be something that lessens some of that. It's going to be a good stress or a stress reliever on our bodies. So being active more than sitting still is going to be great for our bodies. I'll even tie this into our lives when, whether it's spiritually, like spend less time sitting and being passive and more time diving deeper into the word, or more time being intentional about your actions for God, or in the pursuit of God. So sitting less and being more active that way, or even just, in life in general, and there's something to be said for sitting and being still and even listening for God's guidance on things. But at the same time, move with purpose and sit with purpose. So don't just sit idle because you have nothing to do. Go and try to find something to better yourself, or to, in the spiritual context here, like move towards something, move towards God, move yourself in a way that you can be beneficial to the kingdom. Number 4, talk to yourself instead of listen to yourself. I can relate to this one big time. Biblical truth here. We renew our minds with truth. Romans 12:2. Let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. The context is that Paul explains that transformation happens internally, and God reshapes our thinking so that our lives follow. This verse, now that I'm reading it, may have been mentioned on a previous episode. I'm not sure, but it sounds pretty familiar with some of the topics that myself and my guests have talked about. In episode 10 of Faith and Practice, I talked about how my negative self-talk really affected me, especially in my younger years, especially in high school and college, young adult. I remember these times where the voice in my head I took for truth, when really the voice in my head was Satan putting doubt in myself and doubt in God's plan for me. And so what I've found is not only just like changing the self-talk, but being aware of its source, being aware of where it's coming from. For me, like I said, there are so many times where Satan works in my mind. And there's a podcast that I was listening to this week, put on by LCBC. And it kind of talks about Satan kind of works off of God's truths. He wants it to sound like God. He wants to be like 95% true, but then slip his little 5%, 10% lies in there that makes it sound like this is coming from God, but really his little tiny alteration is what puts that doubt in us. And that little tiny alteration, that if we let it manifest and become more than that 5, 10, 15, 20, 50%, then that starts to change our hearts. And that's exactly what he wants. So talk to yourself instead of listening to yourself. And this is something that I'm really trying to work on. It has been brought to my attention. I'll say God has brought it to my attention, because the things I'm consuming, especially in podcast form right now, are learning more about the truth of what the word says to all of us, but I'm taking it internally, especially to me, and trying to fill my mind with that truth. That way, when Satan tries to change it by that 5%, then I can say, no, that you are lying to me. This is what it really says. This is what God really wants from me. So whether that is, biblical truths, or even just taking it down to the most basic level. 10, 15 years ago for me, before I was rooted in my faith as strongly as I am now, just realizing that God does not talk to you in a way that fills you with doubt. God does not talk to you in a way that is meant to make you view yourself or others negatively. And when you start to notice that, you'll start to pick up on these patterns that Satan is doing this. This is what Satan is trying to do, and get you to believe about yourself. He's trying to make you think that you're not worth it. He's trying to make you think you're not worthy. He's trying to make you think that you're not as good as someone else, and therefore you shouldn't pursue something, especially God's purpose, because Satan's purpose is to oppose anything that God is trying to do. So if you're feeling these, or hearing or internalizing these thoughts that you can't do something because insert negative thing here, because you're not smart enough, because you're not strong enough, because you're not disciplined enough, well, it's just lies. It's just Satan trying to oppose what God is trying to do for your life. Number 5, say no energy vampires allowed. For those who are not familiar, the energy vampires is a term for the younger generation here. And that's just people that are going to suck your positive energy, suck your positive outlook. We talk about energy and just like how we're approaching life, how we're approaching other people. And energy vampires are those who kind of steal that from you. The biblical truth to back this up here: guard your heart and your influences. 1 Corinthians 15:33, bad company corrupts good character. And in this, Paul is warning the church that who you allow close to you will also shape your attitudes, your behavior, and your faith. Now, a couple thoughts here. A lot of my closest friends are not believers or not followers. And does it mean that I love them any less? No. But if my goal is to honor God and my goal is to walk with God, then I need to make sure that that's my focus at all times, no matter who I'm surrounded with, whether that's in church with other believers or out in the world with anybody else. I need to guard my heart and my influences to make sure that what I'm walking is the walk that God wants me to. If you want to broaden this beyond spiritual context, just and you get a sense for those people who either don't make you feel good about yourself, and that's not to say like you only need people to lift you up, because we also need people to hold us accountable. But there are some people that just really steal our focus away from goodness and positivity, and those people who are stealing that from you, it's worth just evaluating the effect that these people are having on your life and making an informed decision of, okay, am I going to continue to associate with this person, or am I going to continue allowing this person to take my energy? And by no means am I saying shut somebody out or, cut somebody off. But, these are just kind of realizations or thoughts that we need to have about protecting our heart, guarding our heart and our influences. Number 6, write down your successes of the day. The biblical truth here is remember God's faithfulness. I would say this is kind of loosely tied to the theme here, but Psalm 77, verse 11, but then I recall all you have done, O Lord. I remember your wonderful deeds of long ago. And the person writing this psalm is battling discouragement in this time. And they choose to fight it by intentionally remembering God's goodness. Now, write down your success of the day. This is going to help in a number of ways. One, it's going to keep you positive. It's going to help you stay positive. And it's also going to, from a spiritual perspective or a faith perspective, and I've talked about this on one of the episodes, not just to like pound yourself on the chest and say, look what I did. Look at the great thing that I did today. But like, it's okay to share the great things that you do when you are then deflecting the glory, when you're deflecting the, the goodness of it onto God. And that was hard for me to do for a long time. I've had a number of accomplishments, whether it's in athletics or in career. And, I don't typically bring them up because, it's not, I don't want to place the focus on myself. But at the same time, God can use that. God can work through that, and God can give you that platform so that others can see where that goodness came from, where that accomplishment came from, where your skill set or whatever drove you to be successful, where that came from. And so I think writing down your success of the day, one, it helps you stay positive. It helps you keep that negativity out. And then it gives you an opportunity to see where God's working in your life and ultimately then give that success back to God. Number 7, fight the right battles. You can take this a number of different ways. The biblical truth that I pulled from this is choose battles that matter eternally. 1 Timothy 6 through 12, Fight the good fight for the true faith. Paul, again, encourages Timothy not to waste energy on petty issues, but to stay focused on spiritual endurance and truth. Fight the right battles. You can take this in marriage, you can take this in parenting, you can take this at work or whatever. The idea here is just that every battle we face, and that, gosh, you could take this a million different ways. You could take it battles that we have within ourselves, battles between good and evil, Satan and God, amongst each other, but choose the battles that matter eternally. Those are what we need to be focused on, because if we concern ourselves with either being right all the time, and I know some people struggle with this, for some reason, admitting that they're wrong is just really difficult for them to do. Like, just choose the battles and stand up for the things that are going to make a difference, not just in this life, but beyond this life as well. Because one, that's our focus as believers is, yes, we're here to do good works for God. Yes, we're here to share his word and share the faith. But ultimately, our final destination is not here on this earth. And so choosing the things and thinking about the things and fighting for the things that matter beyond this life are going to be helping you fight the right battles. Number 8 here, this is a big one. This is a great one. Get more sleep. Tying this to the Bible, rest is spiritual. Psalm 127, verse 2, it is useless for you to work so hard, paraphrasing here, or shortening this, it is useless for you to work so hard, for God gives rest to his loved ones. The context here, it reminds us that striving without trusting God leads to burnout. You think about rest, and it kind of, in some ways, reflects trust in God, because whether it's trying to feel that sense of accomplishment at the end of each day, at the end of each week, at the end of each year, or like wanting to have something to show for our efforts, like, it is so easy to get caught up in the grind here. The last episode that was recorded here with Phil Denner, he talks about how his hard work in his career ended up being something that Satan used against him, in the sense that he started to tie his identity to how hard he was working, or the number of hours he was working, trying to provide for his family, trying to do this and that. And like everything in life, like, it just needs to be a balance. So if you are pushing yourself and grinding down to nothing, eventually you're going to run out and you're going to burn out. And so just being mindful that rest is given to us for a reason. When you think about the Bible and how God created the earth, and it said on the seventh day he rested, well, I mean, that's an important parallel for us to draw too, is that God created the whole universe and needed rest. Well, we're out here doing what God is entrusting us to do. Well, we're going to need some rest too, so that we can do it for the long term. And then even beyond the faith aspect of this, like, I talk about sports medicine. I've done a couple episodes with episode 4 with Sarah Neal, and then I think it was episode 13, Recover Like a Pro. The importance of sleep. Sleep is one of the 4 pillars, or the 4 big rocks of recovery. And it's even if you're not an athlete, getting more sleep is going to benefit you so much in just health in general, life and longevity and outlook. If you think about, if you stayed up all night, you got 1 or 2 hours of sleep, the next day, what's your motivation going to be to do anything, let alone like hard work? And then how are you going to act towards others? How are you going to show up for others? How are you going to show up for your family? What are your interactions going to be like? So getting more sleep not only just helps restore our bodies, but it restores our minds. It restores our health. It restores, sleep. Honestly, sleep is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. Investing in sleep, whether that's, finding a mattress that you're going to spend 8 hours a day, a third of your life, investing in a mattress that's going to help you sleep better, sleep hygiene practices, going to bed at a decent time, keeping a regular schedule. like all of this, that sleep is one of the best things that you can invest in and prioritize in your life, because it's going to make so much difference for your mental health, your physical health, and just your outlook and your ability to continue. If we're looking at this as like, the race of life, being able to have endurance is going to require the right amount of rest. So this is probably my favorite one so far. One of the next two is going to rival that here, but getting more sleep is one of the best things that we can do. Number 9, don't waste energy on gossip or negativity. This one, I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but this is an area that I have been extremely cautious of, and extremely, I think I've done a good job thus far in my life to guard my heart from this, but I know it's a really, really, really big one out there. Think about when you're at work. Think about, gosh, even when you're at church, like we are not exempt to this, but just trying to know the scoop, trying to know what's going on with everybody else, trying to figure out, oh, what's this person doing? Or what did this person do wrong? Or can you believe this person's out there doing this? Like, just not worth your time at all. And we talk about staying positive. All of this builds on each other. We talk about staying positive. Like, gossip is negative energy. Gossip is an energy vampire. So the biblical truth here is that words are meant to build us up, not tear us down, not tear somebody else down. Ephesians 4:29, let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. Paul, again, calls us believers to speech that strengthens rather than tears down. So, I mean, it's so simple, but again, it might be just simple to me because this is not typically an area where I feel like Satan's really digging at me. But just think about your words, whether it's saying it directly to someone else about them or talking to someone about someone else. Please, please, please find a way to filter yourself, find a way to filter your thoughts, and think about what are my words doing in this situation? Are my words building someone else up? Or are my words just tearing someone down? And even if it's innocent, even if it's just like curiosity about someone else, like, you just need to be careful and, again, guard your heart with where this talk is going, because our words are meant to build each other up and not tear each other down. The last one I'll hit on today, number 10, I love this one. Live your purpose. The biblical truth here is God created you intentionally. Ephesians 2, verse 10, for we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so that we can do good things, the good things he planned for us long ago. Paul assures believers that their lives are not accidents. God prepared meaningful purpose for them. We take this in our own lives. We can take it in our marriage. We can take it in our work. And this is really, if I had to boil down the essence of what this podcast is about, it would be these 3 words: live your purpose. Part of it is because, I'm 34 years old, and I faced some challenges. I faced some hardships, not at all as severe as many, many people out there. But through those hardships, I have, at some point, crawled back to God. And through that, God has shown me incredible mercy, incredible grace, and has revealed to me through my career especially, and as I'm saying this, I'm thinking even more into like fatherhood, where I'm just trying to be a lot more intentional about what it is that I'm doing. As a father, being intentional about the interactions I have with my kids, making sure that they have a good example of what it means to follow God, what it means to follow Christ, and then living in your purpose. Like, the part of this show, if you listen to the intro, like, part of this show is trying to talk about or trying to discover, trying to help others find their purpose in their calling, in their vocation, in their work. Live your purpose. God has put you in this position for a specific reason. He puts us around certain people for a certain reason. And that's not to say that evil doesn't exist. That's not to say that, I've said it already in this episode, Satan's job is to oppose us. Satan's job is to oppose what God is doing for us and in us. So again, just knowing that God is in all of your circumstances, whether it's Satan acting for evil and doing bad things in your life, like God is still there. We just need to call upon him. And if you are pursuing a life with Jesus, a life with God, the Holy Spirit inside of us, then finding ways to make what you're doing your purpose. And it's funny, I was listening to a podcast from LCBC, and my wife and I talk about this a lot, where there are just going to be some phases in life where, maybe our work doesn't fulfill us. Maybe we view work as a negative thing, but to also even just think about what it is that our work is providing us. Maybe it's just providing us the funds to exist and, live in a certain circumstance. Maybe it's providing us opportunities to help our kids become closer to the truth or give our kids good life experiences. But, there's a purpose for everything that we do. Whether you are filled up and completely jazzed about what you're doing, like I am most of the time, or, if you're in a rut and just not feeling a whole lot of purpose in your job, going back to that gratitude, like our jobs serve us a purpose and provide for us. And I think just the more that we can sit back and tie that to kind of everything that we're doing, tie it to what our purpose is, that can go a really long way. Those are the first 10 on the list. I was just kind of going off the cuff here. I kind of look at them, and I prepared something like the Bible verses and stuff, but just kind of letting God speak through me. Before this episode, I prayed that it would not be my words, but God words that come through into the microphone, so that whatever is being consumed out there through this podcast is only the truth and not just my words. So I'm praying that God uses this to speak to you, and I just letting God speak through me here. For the next episode, I'll go through points 11 through 20. Just it's a little different flavor, a little different setup than some of the other episodes I've done, but I felt like these were really helpful to, at least for my own life, help ground me in thought while I did this little exercise to present to you here. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Faith in Practice. Thank you to all for listening. If you're looking for ways to connect, you can find ways to do so in the show notes, or find me on Instagram at Higher Power Sports PT. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Faith in Practice. We hope you found inspiration and practical wisdom to help you live out your faith on and off of life's playing fields. If today's conversation resonated with you, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Your support helps us continue sharing stories and insights that empower you to align your faith with your vocation. For more resources or to connect with us, visit hpsportspt.com. That's hpsportspt.com. Remember, your faith isn't just a part of your week, it's a part of your life. Let your light shine.